Let's see about getting this going. All right. Welcome back to episode 2 of season 2 of this podcast that accompanies the project called No Other Life Now, which has a sister podcast, which is called Upstaged. You can find out more about that at rickseaholm.com. It's about the creative process when living with Parkinson's disease, something I know all too well. Last week, we were talking about this being a season to learn more about ourselves. And in so doing, we need to dig back to where we began in order to see how it is that we got to where we are today, with the ultimate goal of seeing where it is that we'll end up in the future and keeping in mind how is it that we can help other people to become more the person that they want to be. And with all of these things in mind, we ran a little exercise last time in which we explored what it is that we would do if we needed to talk about ourselves in a 5-minute period or in a 30-second period. And we began to look at, with one of those being 10 times as long as the other, what makes the cut? What doesn't? What are in that top 10% greatest hits that you must include? And the reason that we did that was to help us to find out what we think is the most important things about us to let other people know about. And as we dig deeper, it's going to become less about what they think and more about what we think and where we have been, and a very personal journey that, again, you aren't going to need to justify with me. You're not going to need to do anything except keep it to yourself, which means you can be very forthright about this. You can be as honest as you possibly can be. And so we're going to begin now to lay the groundwork for a series of tasks that we will do over the next few episodes to help us to better grasp how it is that we got where we are right now. And you don't just do it all at once. You don't say, hey, how did you get here? Well, there's a lot going on. There's a lot that you've experienced. There's a lot that you're going through at the moment. So what you need to do is break it down. And so for starters, we are going to take an experience that every one of you is going through right now. You'll say, what on earth could that be? And as silly as it sounds, it's your relationship to this podcast. Every single person who's hearing this podcast has a relationship to it. And the first question that I ask is, what was the most recent thing that you did to establish, confirm, or affirm your relationship to this podcast, which we know you definitely have because you're experiencing it right now. Episode 2, season 2, you're here. How did you get here? Most recently, you will answer, I pressed play on my podcast app. And there's the possibility that you're seeing it over someone's shoulder, or an algorithm suggested that you might like this, and you technically didn't. Okay, I get it. You caught me. However, we're going to say that you pressed play. 2 vocabulary terms come. The relationship that you have to this podcast today, this very moment, is something that we call your incumbent reference point. Reference point is obvious. That's because we're going to keep coming back to it. Incumbent, because of the fact that it is not the final, it's not the first, it's not the best or the greatest or the tallest, fastest, widest. It's just what it is. Today, that is your reference point on a lineage. Now, the lineage in this case is your relationship to the podcast. It could be a number of other things that we'll begin to explore even in this very episode. And then the third little bit of vocab is where you pressed play on the podcast today. We're calling that your penultimate node. And it's a node because you made a choice. And at every point in your entire life, when you take action, you are at a node of some kind. You could have chose to zig and you zagged. You pressed play instead of pause. You went north instead of south, east, or west. You don't just have binary options here. And that is a node. It's penultimate because it is the one that got you to the point where you are. Not the best, not the last, not the ultimate, just the penultimate. Okay, so we've got both of those. And now we're going to find out what got you to the point where you were equipped to press play. And you could go a number of different directions here. You could take it in the direction of when you got your phone that you listened to this on, and that allowed you to have the play button. Or you could say, well, I was really into a string of podcasts that I hoped would help me find a fulfilling life. And this was one that came up. Okay, great. That's perfect. Now, we're not going to keep asking the same question of how did you get to the podcast? And there's a good reason for that. The reason is this podcast is 6 months old. Exactly. You've been doing whatever you're doing for a long time before that. You might be 20 or 50 or 70 years old. Who knows? But this exploration, it far exceeds 6 months. So I fall out of the picture almost immediately. So I say, how did you get to the play button? You say you were looking for fulfilling material. And then you say, well, how did I get to... Oh, well, there was that... I had to get interested in podcasts in general. Well, why? Well, because I had an overnight job. I had to keep an eye on this security camera, but I was bored, and so I needed something to listen to keep stimulated. So that point, 10 years ago, I got into podcasts. Great. So it has nothing to do with me, but if you hadn't had that job, you wouldn't be into podcasts through the same route, and you might never have found this one. So then you work your way backward and say, well, how did I get that job? Oh, it was through this person. How did I have the opportunity to know that person? It's because of this other person, and I went to school, and I did this and that. And before you know it, you're back in second grade when you ate a peanut butter sandwich, you got the jelly all over your shirt, you went to the nurse's office to get that weird spare shirt that they had in the nurse's office. You met some other kid there. You became best friends. You ended up 1, 2, 3, all these steps later, and now you're here experiencing this podcast. There are 1 million podcasts in the world, but you found this one because of jelly on a shirt. You can't go back any farther. You have now found something that is called the germinal stimulus for that lineage. And all that means is that prior to the existence of that germ, you were living a generic life with respect to the lineage of me and you and this podcast. Now, it was second grade, so of course you were living a generic life related to podcasts. They didn't exist. I may not have even existed. But it was that got you set onto a path that allowed you to have the equipment, the experience, the life that got you where you are today. It's pretty interesting to think about. Now, we learned an awful lot about stimuli in the previous season. And the critical thing that we needed to realize there is that you are constantly being bombarded by things that you witness with your eyes, your ears, your skin, your nose. All of the senses are working all the time. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that you witness millions of stimuli every day. And most of them just go right over your head as wallpaper or background noise. But listen to this small example. We have something that is called unremarkable stimuli. And an unremarkable stimulus is just what I mentioned. It goes right by you like wallpaper. You're driving home someday, and you get home and you say, did I just black out because I don't remember anything about that journey? And the truth is, you just were on a trip with no stimuli that made you say, I need to try to remember that, or I need to remember to tell someone what I just went through. Any one of those things. But you were on an unremarkable journey, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes we need that. I mean, a lot of the time we need that. And so this germinal stimulus, more often than not, is something that comes to you. You don't come to it. It's spilling that jelly on your shirt. The reason you can't go back further in that lineage is because that just dropped in your lap. It's one of those things that appeared to you, was introduced to you. You needed to react, in this case, heading off to the nurse's office to get the spare shirt. But it's an instance where something unremarkable becomes remarkable and sets you on a path so that you'll end up having the catalyst, the adjustment phase, making the changes all throughout until eventually you're sitting here listening to me. God bless you. Thank you for being here with me today. So that's what I mean when I say a germinal stimulus. And think about all of the points in your life where, or just even in that exercise, if you really saw it through to your jelly sandwich, there are so many nodes on that journey from wherever to you listening today that just happened. They had nothing to do with your choice. You didn't set out and say, I'm interested in this new technology called podcast. No, you probably heard about one from someone, figured out how to put it onto your Zune or something 15 years ago, and bam, there you are. Now you are introduced to podcasts. And in the world of romantic comedies, you hear about the meet cute. It's someone walking along and they drop something on the ground and then they butt heads with someone and they look in their eyes and all of a sudden magic has happened by movie standards, but by real world standards, something has happened that is irrevocable. You can't go back. Your life has changed. And when we think about all of the things that are going on in the world, and when we realize the magnitude of the meet cute, when we realize the number of times in our lives where everything changes and we had nothing to do with it, it's overwhelming. What am I going to do before bedtime that could change my life forever? What am I going to witness? What stimuli are going to graduate into the world of remarkable / catalyst, lead to the adjustment phase. Bam, I'm in a new beginning. And where did it come from? Just because I walked from here into my bedroom. Okay, great. So what does that do? Does it freeze us to inaction where we just say, oh my God, if I take one more step, I'm going to find something that I don't even know what it is and it's going to change my life? No, you don't do that. You can choose to control stimuli. The other day, I've got a ton of stuff going on in my world right now. And the other day I got the stupid envelope with all the coupons in it in the mail, and I was about to open it up. I never do anything with these, but I sometimes say, oh, that one's interesting, and set it aside. And as I was about to open this, I said, no, I do not want to risk anything in that envelope being a stimulus that will then make me think that I need to take action, then make me have another adjustment phase in my life. I don't want that. So I threw it in the garbage. And sometimes you need to do this. If you have a weakness for social media or television ads or fashion or going into the home center, as they say on This Old House, any place that you know you will expose yourself to more stimuli than you want, and I don't mean the old wineskins thought of a stimulus being like, oh, there's too much going on. I'm not talking about stimulation, like overindulgence of the eyes in a big Barbie world. I'm saying, no, it's just you seeing things that make you say, oh, now I need to do something about that. And I think you probably know what I mean by that. You don't want the bubble gum, the pink, and all of those things that just make you say, whoa, there's too much going on here for risk, that sometimes one of them will make you say, I always did want to have a spiral slide in my house that goes into a pool of gumballs. I didn't think about it before, but that's something I want to work with. Well, if you don't watch these particular children's commercials or movies or whatever, you might not be exposed to that. I digress. But what I want you to do in this next period before you see or hear the next episode is think about that backward momentum from the podcast to wherever you got interested to it, or if you've already done that, try it for some other elements in your life. One thing you could do is go back, as we're going to talk about a lot in the next episode, to that moment where we were talking last time about the 30-second pitch, the 5-minute, who are you, what are you doing here sort of discussion. And begin to think about some of those. You could work your way backward and say, I like to say that I'm a really compassionate person. Why? And then you work your way back and back and back. We're going to play with this some more next time, so I hope you will join me. And in the meantime, friends, you got to take care of yourselves because you have no other life. Bye.